Namaste. This is Nataraja Pillai again. So today we will have a discussion on high temperature flows. We know that high temperature flows or one such phenomenon happens in the hypersonic flow theory. So we will be discussing that today. I acknowledge hypersonic and high temperature gas dynamics by John D. Anderson, right? So these are the phenomena happens in the hypersonic flow. I always use these slides for another two lectures too, in order to make such a phenomenon familiar to you. So thin shock layer, entropy layer, viscous interaction, high temperature flows and low density flows or the phenomenon happens in the hypersonic flow. So out of these five, let us discuss the high temperature flows today that has a very good impact on the hypersonic flow phenomenon. Let us start with the information we had discussed in the previous lecture. We know that the kinetic energy of the hypersonic flow is really very high, and it is dissipated by the influence of friction within the boundary layer. And in the last class we have seen this is called the viscous dissipation, right? So the extreme viscous dissipation creates a very high temperature. The temperature is high enough to excite the vibrational energy, right, internally within the molecules, and that causes the dissociation and even ionization within the gas. Say for example O2 is oxygen, that will be converted into 2O, and later it will become 2O plus and E minus, right? So such a dissociation and ionization happens at the very high speed, very high temperature and at a very high velocity. So if the surface of the hypersonic vehicle is protected by ablative heat shield, right? Assume. So now the product of ablation are also present in the boundary layer, right? In terms of some molecules, right? So this gives rise to the complex hydrocarbon chemical reactions. Already we have high temperature and there is a dissociation and ionization of the gas molecules happens in the hypersonic speed. Again another problem is the ablative heat shield, right? That also creates some chemical reaction. So both of these acts on the hypersonic vehicle and it creates a chemically reacting boundary layer, right? So this gives a new way of chemically reacting boundary layer. So again the boundary layer is not only the region with high temperature over the hypersonic flow, right, over the hypersonic vehicle, but most of the part will be having a high temperature that we will be discussing. So let us consider a blunt nose body, right? The body with the blunt nose, and here we will be having a shock wave that is called bow shock. The bow shock is formed by considering the Mach number at 36, right? And because of the flow, say there is a formation of shock layer when it is a thin shock layer, right? So we say that there is a high temperature shock layer here, and the expanded view of this particular nose region, where the nose region will be having almost a normal shock, right? The temperature which occurs at this particular shock layer is almost 11,000 Kelvin, where there is a radiation and the ionization of the air takes place, right? So let us have a discussion on two things. One is calorifically perfect gas and another one is equilibrium, chemically reacting gas. So this graph is drawn between the shock layer temperature. Please read this as 10 power 3, and in the x-axis you have a re-entry velocity, right? So the re-entry velocity, here there is an increase in velocity and the temperature on the y-axis. This graph is drawn for the considering the standard altitude of 52 kilometer. Now the left side of this curve is for calorifically perfect gas, where the specific heat gamma is equal to 1.4, right? But in the real case, you see this gives the unrealistic temperature, right? So unrealistically high value of temperature, that we will be seeing that again. So the right curve, which assumes the equilibrium chemically reacting gas, which is really closer to the actual situation, right? So this is a comparison between considering a calorifically perfect gas and the chemically reacting gas. Okay, from this what we infer? So by any account, the temperature in the nose region of that blunt body, right, is like around 11,000 Kelvin, right, for a Mach number of 36. This is considered for the Apollo re-entry, right? So temperature is very high, it is almost 11,000 Kelvin. We need to note that. So the second point, the proper inclusion of chemically reacting effects is very important in calculating the accurate shock layer temperature. Say the assumption gamma is constant and equal to 1.4, as usually we consider in many of our thermal problems, is no longer valid at this particular high temperature. Hence, we can come to a point that for hypersonic flow, not only the boundary layer be chemically reacting, but the entire shock layer can be dominated by chemically reacting flow, right? So let us consider the flow over a hypersonic body be a chemically reacting flow. Now for a moment, let us examine the physical nature of the high temperature gas. Okay. So in our thermodynamics, probably in the third semester, right, and again the subsequent semesters with the compressible flow theory, we always have the assumption, right, the ratio gamma is equal to Cp by Cv is a constant one in most of the cases, right? So this really gives some ideal results for pressure, density, temperature and the Mach number variation in the flow. But when we consider the gas or air at very high temperature, right, very high temperature, the gas behaves in non-ideal fashion. So this gamma is equal to Cp by Cv will be no longer valid in this particular situation of very high temperature. Okay, now the question is, okay, that is fine, but what happens? Why we consider this as non-ideal case? Okay, now the point here is the vibrational energy of the molecules become excited, and this causes the Cp and Cv in terms of temperature. So the specific heat ratio gamma is equal to Cp by Cv will also become the function of temperature, right? Say for air, the effect becomes important above the temperature of 800 Kelvin. But in the case of hypersonic, we experiences very high temperature to that of 11,000 Kelvin we have studied just now in the Apollo re-entry, right? So as the gas temperature further increased, the chemical reaction can occur. Now the Cp by Cv or Cp and Cv are all become the function of temperature and pressure. Say let us consider an temperature at a high temperature of course, but well, let us consider the pressure at 1 atmospheric pressure. The oxygen O2 dissociate into 2O at 2000 Kelvin, and the molecular oxygen starts dissociating at 4000 Kelvin, right? So now at Kelvin what happens is, now at 4000 Kelvin, if we consider nitrogen N2, that become 2N, and the dissociation starts at 9000 Kelvin, right? So the at 9000 Kelvin, the nitrogen becomes N is equal to N plus plus E minus, and oxygen becomes O plus and E minus, right? So this becomes ions now. So the gas becomes partially ionized plasma, right? Say these phenomena, all these phenomena are because of the high temperature effects. In most of the aerodynamic literature, in most of the books, we consider this as a real gas effects, but there are good technical reason to discourage the use of that label, that we will discuss little later in the hypersonic flow theory. Now if the vibrational excitation and the chemical reactions takes place very much rapidly in comparison to the time it takes for the fluid element to move through the flow field, we have vibrational and chemical equilibrium flow, right? When we can call it as a chemically equilibrium flow, and when we can call this as non-equilibrium flow. So there is a discussion. So 2 points here, right? One is the microscopic changes or the chemical reactions. Now the microscopic changes or the chemical reactions are at the faster rate than the movement of fluid, then it is treated as equilibrium flow, otherwise it is treated as non-equilibrium flow. Of course non-equilibrium flow is very difficult to analyze, and all this is collectively called as the real gas effects. Here the two things you need to remember, one is the microscopic changes or the chemical reactions. If the chemical reactions are at a faster rate, or the movement of fluid, say movement of fluid at that altitude may be one molecule and another molecule of air, the travel time taken, right? So the time or the reaction rate chemically reacting flow, right? Here the reaction rate is faster or the movement of fluid is faster. So if the reaction rate is faster than the movement of the fluid, then it is called equilibrium flow. If not, it will become non-equilibrium flow. So this is collectively termed as the real gas effects, right? So some consequences of the presence of high temperature reacting fluid or plasma in the vicinity of flight vehicle, which includes various aerodynamic parameters, aerodynamic heating, and another important term which is called communication blackout, right? So the communication blackout is really an important phenomena that we need to discuss at the high temperature flows. So here okay, let us discuss something on convective heating and radiative heating, right? So aerodynamic heating dominates the design of all the hypersonic missions, right? where it be a flight vehicle or a ramjet powered engine vehicle, or even in the wind tunnel testing, right? So aerodynamic heating is dominating. Now the aerodynamic heating takes the form of heat transfer from the hot boundary layer to the cooler surface. Then we can call this as the convective heating, and in the diagram of the blunt body we name this as QC, right? QC is a convective heat transfer coefficient, right? So two things happens, one is convective heating and another. So the second point, the proper inclusion of chemically reacting effects is very important in calculating the accurate shock layer temperature. Say the assumption gamma is constant and equal to 1.4, as usually we consider in many of our thermal problems, is no longer valid at this particular high temperature. So what is radiative heating? Where, you know, in the winter season in the cold countries, probably like Denmark, US, Japan, South Korea, whatever country you take, when you warm yourself besides a roaring fire in the fireplace, the warmth you feel is not hot air blowing, but it is radiation, right? Radiation from the hot bricks and the stone of the walls in the fireplace. So this is what radiation is, right? Okay, so now I think we need to have a discussion on the communication blockout, probably. Yeah. So I hope you understand the convective heating and the radiative heating, right? So okay, now say we can imagine the warmness, right? How strong it is warm. So you would feel standing next to the gas behind the strong shock wave. So at Mach number 36 for the Apollo re-entry, we consider that as 11,000 Kelvin, which is about twice the surface temperature of the sun, right? Say, for example, in the Apollo re-entry, the radiative heat transfer was more than 30% of the total heating. Very interesting information. And in the case of space probe entering into the atmosphere of the Jupiter, the radiative heating will be more than 95% of the total heating. So the importance of the radiative heating need to be considered, right? So with such high temperature, right? So the high temperature and the consideration of the gases will be like in terms of ions and so on. We cannot simply calculate the drag, lift, pitch, roll, and deflection of the control surfaces, and calculating the forces acting because of the deflection and all those things. We cannot simply consider that by considering the calorifically perfect gas, right? Again, the communication waves, because I told there is a formation of free electrons and all those things, right? So communication waves, which are necessarily the radio waves, gets absorbed by the free electrons which are formed from the ionization of the atmospheric fluid. So say in the case of nitrogen, if it become N plus and E minus, or considering oxygen, whether it is O plus and E minus. So this kind of the radio waves, right? The radio waves gets absorbed by such free electrons. That really stops the communication between the ground and the onboard. This particular phenomenon is called communication blockout, right? So the communication between the onboard and the ground will be terminated because of the radio waves get absorbed by the free electrons formed from the ionization. Right? So these are all the information about the high temperature flows. I stop at this point, and we need to study the low density flows in the next class. Right? I recommend you to read John D. Anderson's high temperature flow, hypersonic and high temperature flow, to to enrich your knowledge. Thank you very much for joining.